Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Shalom, my name is Ali Wiener Abraham. I am the Jewish Education and Early Childhood Education Coordinator at the JCC of the Lehigh Valley in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Thank you all for joining us here tonight to discuss the topic of parenting or teaching through mindfulness. When picking this topic for our JCC parent panel, I felt a strong connection to this particular topic. I myself am a parent of 2 young children and wear plenty of hats in our community as a teacher, educator, and support for our teachers and parents within our community. In the last few months, I have turned to both our amazing speakers, Amanda and Allison, for guidance in both my home and our classrooms. I am beyond excited to introduce you to Amanda. Amanda, please, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Amanda Walker, and I am from Ponder, Texas, and I have 6 children. I have 1 boy and 5 girls, and I'm a learning and development coach and parent educator. So I'm currently working with families who have uniquely wired kids, and I coach them and have a weekly live meeting. It's not a meeting, like a live on my Facebook group. And Allie found me through my parenting workshop way back, I think maybe March. And we've been working together since then. She's amazing. And I'm so excited she invited me to come and share a little bit of the wisdom that I've gained all these years. And how that might help you in your situation, either in your home or in your classroom. So I'm very passionate in helping others who have children, and especially uniquely wired kids who might struggle in other areas to learn or just to socially get along or be able to control the behavior. So that's me in a little nutshell.
Allison, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Allison McIntosh. Hello, very happy to be here. I'm coming to you from Dayton, Ohio, and I have 3 kids and a husband, been married for quite some time, and my specialty is in life coaching, and I specifically work with stressed out moms and women, and especially people who are having a very hard time with the pressures of all of the responsibilities that build up, and really when it becomes like it feels like life is not the way it's supposed to be, like it's just lost a lot of its joy and peace. That's where I come in. I teach all about self-care and mindfulness, and really it all comes down to how we approach our life ourselves. So that's the expertise that I bring to the table. And Allie and I just met. She came to my Freedom Fast Track workshop. So that was something recently, and I'm very excited to have met you and happy to be here tonight.
Thank you both so much. I know we've only personally met recently, but I've had your guidance through Amanda in some of her workshops. So I've heard things, I've heard your classes, I've heard your guidance in the past, and it really resonated with me. I would like to take a moment to just talk about what mindfulness really means, what it means to you guys. For me, mindfulness means being in the moment and how I can be there for my kids or for my students. So, Allison, you want to start?
Yeah, so mindfulness is such a fun topic to me. And when I first started learning about it, I really had a certain idea about what that meant. And as a recovering perfectionist, to me, that looked like, well, I have to be right here, exactly where I am in this present moment. I have to be enjoying it. I have to be totally sensory aware of it, like bring all my focus to this moment. And I tried that for a while, and there's really good things about that. I do have lots of times where I try to intentionally come back to my senses in the moment and really be in touch with the moment. But I've also learned that it can be a lot more relaxed than what we tend to do in our mind too. And that we can actually live with a state of intentional mindfulness, even when we have our whole world of thoughts going on all the time. And that's fine. That's still there's nothing wrong there. That's still us living in our world and how we're experiencing our world. And so I've come to bring this state of mind to my own life that is much more joyful for me. And it's much more thinking about every moment as like for me, like all the moments are for me. So even though it's doing things with other people, and I love giving to them and I love doing things for them and I love helping them, I really have switched my mindset to start thinking about how is this for me? Like in every single moment, what about this do I love? What about this is like this special thing that nobody else gets to see except for me? And it brings so much joy back to my life. And it helps me remember that all these things that I've put into my life are my treasured possessions. They a lot of times it starts to become almost like responsibilities and liabilities, like all these things to do and all these people to take care for and all this stuff. But when we can switch it back to, no, I put all these in here on purpose. These are all my life on purpose. It's all for me. Like every single thing I'm looking at all the time, I'm touching, I'm hearing, I'm holding, it's all for me. And things really started to really shift me when I started to look at life like that. So that's how I like to see mindfulness.
Excellent. Okay. So can I just jump in?
Jump in.
Awesome. Okay. Number one, I love you, Allison. She's just a joy to be with. Literally, when I'm freaking out, I call her and she talks me off the cliff. She's amazing. She's like, okay, hold on. So here's my definition of mindfulness. Now it's kind of a polished one because I have been working on mindfulness, my own personal practice, but also in teaching other people. And so to me, mindfulness is paying attention. Like whether you're holding a baby or you're doing dishes, like just paying attention to what you're doing with a couple qualities that I think are really, really something that as women, I think we can naturally do a little bit better than sometimes others. And as mothers is paying attention to the present moment with kindness, curiosity, patience, and courage. Now, I added courage recently because of all the amazing families that I work with. And it takes courage to mother and parent more than one child, and especially a child who might not fit in the box, right? Or you might not have like the atypical family dynamic. Like there's just a lot of things going on in our world, beyond COVID, but with all of those things. So being able to pay attention to just kind of notice with curiosity and kindness. And sometimes we really have to be courageous to do something or to stop doing something. And so that kind of mindfulness helps us navigate the craziness that really we have to navigate through literally every single day as we are striving to be the parent, the teacher, or the administrator, right? Or the coach that our heart yearns to be. So obviously I love this subject.
So I have a question. What kind of advice could you give for being more mindful when you've got more than one kid? I want to be mindful with my children. I want to be mindful in all the moments. And I know that's a stressor on me, but how do I find the time to be mindful when I've got a kid crying and the other kid needs attention, or in a classroom when I've got one kid who's exploring something new for the first time and 5 other kids need my attention all at the same moment? Who wants
to go first, Amanda?
Well, yeah, I don't mind going first. The biggest thing, now I have my little thing that I teach in my group about pushing pause. Like we have the whole, and I don't know if Allie's showed you guys this before, but basically It's this idea of making a little pause button on your hand to push pause. Like when it's getting cray cray, it's like just push pause and just breathe for a second, because that gives you an opportunity to like not just react. Okay. The other thing is, how can you simplify your everyday life or simplify your classroom? So there's a little bit of space to be able to navigate the things that you don't plan for, right? For the kid that is hitting the other kid, right? Or both of your children are screaming, because if there's a little bit of space where you don't have every moment cram packed, you can actually push pause and go, okay, what's the best thing to do right now? I mean, other than running out of the house screaming, like what can I do? And so I think there's a part practice, and then there's a part of kind of setting up your day to day with less things going on, kind of like that minimalist idea, not totally minimalist, but just have less expectations, so that when those unexpected things happen, you can breathe for a moment to get that direction that we all innately have inside of us.
Yeah, that's so good. And so I'll just piggyback on that. I love breath work. And I love this idea that we do this thing in our head where we think that these things take time, right? Like everything takes so much time. Yeah. How do I have time to be mindful? But it's not a time thing. Like time is kind of an illusion anyway, but it's not about how do I make time to be mindful. It's about how am I carrying my state of being. And so when we are living in our life, and let's just say like in my household, and my kids are going in 3 different directions and each screaming for 3 different things, and how we do. It's not how I am making the time to be mindful in the moment. It's about how am I being in my body in relation to all these things? How am I? The breath work is something that is something we can think about doing really easily, because we're like, oh, breathing. And sometimes when you kind of hold that little nugget in your mind, you'll realize that you hold your breath a lot, because when you start noticing, okay, wait, I'm supposed to take a breath here, and you're like, wait, why have I been holding my breath? And then when you start learning how to follow your breath work and just allow yourself to breathe, that doesn't take time, right? That's like seconds. And then when you learn how to start doing that, then you can also learn, wait, there's other things about my body too. Like I'm holding myself like this, right? Or I'm like trying something really hard and I'm holding all this tightness and all this tension. And the problem is when we start being in that state of existence, like chronically, it creates stress. It creates more stress, because you're like, I have to fix this now so I can breathe. I have to fix this now so I can relax. I have to fix this now because I have to feel better now. And it starts creating this desperation and this urgency that's actually not even present in the room. That's all internal. So when we come to a situation, and no matter what happens, like that can start to happen. We can start to be like, oh, like I'm starting to react, but then we can become aware. Oh, wait a minute. Nobody is making me do that. I can like stop and I can relax, drop my shoulders. And I always look for my posture. So I'm always like, what's my posture right now? Am I stacked? Right. And then and start doing stuff like this actually. And kids love this. Okay. Because even if you're not, obviously this is not something that would work in the classroom, but I have had moments where I have gotten myself to such a point where I'm so much physically like this, that I just like got on the ground and like curled up and I was like, you're going to be the parent now. And I turned it into a game. They still talk about it. They still talk about it. Like, so whatever like silliness and fun, just bring it in. Like, stop trying to make things fit into a box, and it starts to shift how everything feels. And then you can start to see, what is the next simple thing? What is the next right thing? I love it that Frozen now has a song about the next right thing, because we can sing it together, right? Like it's on the playlist. So that's how I like to approach everything. And another thing about it is coming to the table with compassion for both all the people involved and for yourself. Yeah. Because getting like that feeling of, oh my gosh, like my insides are doing this and something has to be fixed is very, very normal. So when we can start allowing ourselves to just be human, and then also say, and I have tools. Wait a minute, I can control this. I can control how I feel right now. I can control how I breathe right now. Okay, then I can start tapping into like the part of my brain that makes decision-making, because the part of your brain that operates out of fear, the more you let yourself, the more you, the more you allow the like crazy, like, oh my gosh, I have to fix this, the more the part of your brain that has fear signals starts lighting up. Like your stress actually creates stress is what I'm talking about here. Like actually physically in your body. But when you can relax your body physically, you start tapping into the side of your mind that starts making logical decision-making modes. So it actually physically is to your benefit to understand what to do with your space here first, because then you can start thinking about everything like truly logically. It's very cool.
I am definitely a strong believer of breath work and taking a moment to come into your own. I don't think I was that into it before the lockdown and before I spent this much time with my entire family in a small apartment. But I also, and I do have to thank both of you for giving me that guidance on that breath work, because I mean, yeah, people always say, take a breath, but until I actually started to stop and I guess push the pause button and take that moment, I was really able to take in my surroundings, appreciate what's going on, getting to know what the needs are of my family. Actually, in our home, I do this thing, even with my hands, I go, and like when I want to take the stress away, I'm like, and I push it away and kind of like throw it out the window. And I've even got my 18-month-old taking deep breaths with me now. And in all my classrooms, down to the infants, I've got them taking breaths with me before we start or move on to or transition into something else. So especially when I see them starting to get a little antsy and needing to refocus, I'm like, okay, guys, guess what? Let's catch a bubble. Take a big deep breath, take it all in, bring that whole bubble all the way into your belly and then blow it out. Obviously with masks now, we're actually more appreciative of the masks, but we're conscious of not going into anyone's faces, but taking that big breath in and slowly releasing it and also kind of making a game with it. Who can be the longest blowing it out? Who can keep it in for the longest? Who can take their time blowing it out? And then they all kind of come back to me and are able to refocus in the classroom. So it's, I mean, I never really thought much of breath work and pausing the button before we were all home together. Now I have a real appreciation for it, for in my home with my family, with my kids, and for in the classroom. So thank you for talking about that pause button and for the importance of really taking those deep breaths and doing those breaths and, you know, having the mindset of not just those around you, but also within yourself and what you need. Sometimes I just need to throw that breath out the window. Sometimes I just need to take all the chaos and just throw it out the window and I'll deal with it. Right now I've got my kids to deal with. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I wanted to just add one thing, because when we pay attention and just even take a few breaths, we're able to get that guidance to know, okay, what's the next thing, right? And a lot of times I do some sort of movement. So like I move my breath, but then I'm like, I need to walk, right? Or I need to do some cross crawls, or I need to just shake my arms, kind of like you were doing, just shake my arms a little bit, because there's sometimes just extra energy that wants to come out. And so instead of like
Yeah.
wanting to, like shake something, you just shake your arms, right? So the breath isn't always the end of that moment. It can just kind of bring you into, okay, here's the next thing that's going to be helpful. And that's even helpful in the classroom to say, okay, what do you need, right? If we take a couple breaths, then the child who's really upset will have more of their brain to be able to determine what's going to help them, right? Like, do they need to sit for a little bit? Do they need to go for a walk? What would help them feel better, right? So we're really wanting to help our kids learn how to self-regulate. And so that's why it's so important, Allie, that you're doing that with those kids in the classroom, is you're teaching them how to regulate themselves. Because I mean, we have a lot of adults these days that don't know how to regulate themselves, right? And we can go in and out of that ability as well. Like there's been days where I'm like, I'm not regulated, nothing, right? But so just that level of practicing and then figuring out what that next step is so helpful in finding a solution collaboratively, right? Instead of just telling, okay, go do this and hopefully that'll solve it. But the more that we can bring those children in, depending on their age, and solve those things together, the more tools the child will have long term.
I love that you mentioned that with adding in the movement, because I do that a lot. Like I do this kind of thing all the time. I like roll my neck all the time. I'll do stuff where I stretch in all directions.
Do you like fly? No, I'm kidding.
I just like stretch, like I stretch my body.
Yeah.
I think about stretching my body in all the directions that I can, because I'm trying to actually deny my brain's desire to just go like this. So I'm like, no, I'm going to go as big as I can go. And something about that that's so fun to do with kids is that it brings this whole playfulness back into it. And when you can start bringing play back in, even in the middle of like, we're all mad at each other.
Yeah.
As you start bringing in silliness and like, okay, well, we're going to jump, or we're going to do these things, or we're just going to act totally goofy. The connection can be restored really fast, and it does start working a lot faster. So definitely that's true stuff in the movement. So good.
I'm also, I find it so interesting when we think of mindfulness, we usually think of, older kids, teens, adults, and thinking, oh, well, maybe they're too young to really understand or take the pause, take the moment. But I think that, even babies can really understand that, take that pause in that moment. They might not, fully take that pause. But I mean, since my daughter was before a year, since I started with my journey with Amanda, she wasn't even a year old yet, and started doing that breath work with her, she really understood it. So, babies as little as a year old can take a moment, take those breaths, and now she can express to me in her own way, not always words, but in her own way, her needs, that I might just get frustrated from the whining and the crying and the, take a breath. And I'm telling you, watching an 18-month-old take a breath is one of the cutest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And then probably the least thing that you would expect an 18-month-old to say is what's bothering her. Like, I mean, no, you're probably expecting she dropped her cookie. But as little as they are, they're able to express themselves and be mindful, and they're able to calm themselves down at such a young age and to be able to express themselves. But it's also us giving them that opportunity to identify that within themselves, to know how to calm themselves down now at a young age will only help them later on when they've got bigger issues besides falling cookies. So I just wanted to take a moment and identify that, age, there's no limit to that age, they can do it as babies, and it's amazing to watch.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it is. It is amazing. I love it.
if anybody has any questions, or if you have some, something you want to bring up or you want to talk about, please feel free to pop in, unmute yourself, ask a question, post it in the chat or on the Facebook Live. I'm seeing some of our friends message, and I really appreciate it. And I just want to let you know we're here to have this open conversation and help you and help your families and your classrooms any way that we can.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
So I'm a single mother of 4 kids. Allie's aware of it. And I'm parenting my kids on my own with no external help, not from my ex-husband and not from extended family or even immediate family. So I work 6 days a week and they're very long shifts. How do you stay mindful, sane? Oh, and half my kids are teenagers. So how do you stay mindful, sane, and a parent that's raising decent children in a dynamic like this, where you try to do the best you can in the circumstances that you're put in? I want to raise good kids. I want to raise strong, and I have 3 daughters and a son, so I want to raise strong women, but also a respectful man to acknowledge a woman's feelings and also know where he steps in when he needs to. I want to try to accomplish these goals with my kids.
Okay, I have a few thoughts. First of all, you are doing amazing already. Like already, you already are. I know that I'm not in there with you, but you can already tell. Okay, so give yourself huge amounts of credit right now for where you are. Okay, yes, take a breath. Relax your shoulders. Because just the fact that you have these things in your mind as the goals that you want and the things that what you want them to grow into being, that's, you already are so much farther than you think you are. So the very first thing here is compassion all around for the situation, for yourself, for all the things on your plate. I would be so, I would be so happy if you could just make your main goal to compassion right now. Like compassion for yourself and compassion for them, like almost even above anything else. Because what the first thing that I always say is that everything is a reflection of you. So the environment, your connection with your kids, you are able to create that experience, and simply with just how you are handling your own emotional state and your own internal dialogue and the voice, the thoughts in your head and the feelings that you have. If you were to go into a mode of just being like, I'm going to really start tuning into my feelings, and I'm going to really start tuning into like the thoughts that are around those feelings and how I can think about those and how I can address those, that's just that alone, like that's what your kids need to see. Your kids need to see you modeling how you yourself are taking control and ownership. And that teaches them things. The way we learn to deal with ourselves is how they learn how to deal with themselves. And also it makes conversations just flow really naturally. And how you're going to talk with your daughters about their feelings and their thoughts becomes a very natural flow, because you're currently like, yeah, I know that. I have that feeling. I have that thought. So I can talk about that with you. It becomes much easier to be in a state of learning yourself and making yourself super important. Not that you have to have a lot of time. Like everybody always thinks that means I got to have time. I don't have time. I've got a full-time job and 4 kids. Like that. It's not about time at all. It's about how you're actually learning to come back in tune with yourself and paying attention to what's going on inside. That's everything. It's literally everything. Because go ahead.
So how do you do that? So I have been doing a lot of internal work. I have been doing a lot of like internal self-awareness kind of work. However, in today's society, when you have, especially with the Zoom, and you have kids that are so infused, like I have 3 kids on gadgets right now. I walked into the door and I'm completely like, I'm non-existent. If I shut off the gadgets, it's World War III in the house. So how do I implement that self-awareness, that good role model with starting with myself when they're not even paying attention? They're not even focused on what my actions are. Like, they won't see what I do until it's chaos. And then you never do this and you never do that. And I'm like, hello, like I was here doing everything just till now. You just didn't see it.
Yeah.
Amanda, I would love it if you could talk some about your connection points.
Yeah.
You do. I think this would be really helpful.
For sure. So it goes back to everything that Allison's saying is really how the world works. Like, your intentions as a mother of what it is that you want to create for your family is going to happen as you keep that goal. Is it going to look sloppy? Yes. Are you going to wonder if they even notice all the stuff you do? I promise you, I have adult children. They start to see it. Okay. When you love your children, even if you feel like you're falling short all the time, they see it, whether they acknowledge it or not. Okay. So one of the things that's really helpful in a family, especially if you're a single mom, are a couple things. Okay. And I totally get the thing about turning off devices and it's World War III, right? Because so often our devices is how we work through challenging emotions. It's how we work throughout the day when we feel like we don't know what to do, right? So we go, let's turn on Hulu, right? Let's flip through Instagram, right? Let's do those things because they calm us down. Now, long-term, they're not the best calm down, but so there's one thing that I really, really encourage my families to do is to each day spend, like, if you have 4 kids and you work full time, then it would be like, maybe you pick 1 kid a day that you spend 5 minutes with them doing something they love. Not saying a word. You're just there to listen and to learn about them. And over time, as your child sees that, not, talking about what assignment didn't happen or they didn't clean that, it's genuinely just authentically sitting with them, playing a video game with them, sitting down while they're doing their makeup, right? Like helping them do something they're doing, something that they enjoy doing. And I know with 4 kids, it might be a lot to do one every single day. So there's this connection piece. The more connected we are to one another, the more we're able to influence our kids, the more they're going to sit up and take notice of more of the things that are important. And the second thing is to, over time, creating some habits of gratitude and habits of finding and catching your kids doing good things and telling them about it consistently.
So my pediatrician had, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
He had suggested something to me and I tried that. He said like to buy, and I have them, the bands. He told me he had like a seminar he went to where you take 7 bands and you put it on one wrist. And then when you compliment or you say like a genuine from the soul kind of thing, like a good thing that your kid did, take it and you transfer it. Except when you're carrying this much bands on you, kids are not supposed to know about it.
That's a lot.
It got overwhelming because I really tried to give them the like positive reinforcement, like you're doing so good, but it gets overwhelming when you have 4 times the kids and like, what did I say to who?
Yes. So what you do is you get your kids on board with the same activity, right? So within my parenting workshop, I talk about every day, finding 5 things you're grateful for and catching your kids doing something, and you write it down and you keep it on the fridge. Like it becomes a part of your culture that when you're one of the other children, Sally helped me do something while mom was gone, right? Like you get into this habit of finding the things you're grateful for and catching your kids doing good things. It shifts something in the home and it takes concerted effort, but you will feel so much better when that's something you're looking for. Because when we tell our brains to look for something, they're like, they're on the search, they're on the hunt. to find those things. So the two things I'm saying, connection, authentic connection, 5 minutes with one of your children each day, doing something they love and not really talking, just being there and listening, right? And then start finding the good things that are all around you. The fact that your child gets off the phone after, or after the third time, when it's usually the fifth time it takes, right? Like we're talking little tiny increments so that you start to see the good, and then showing it to them, like on a dry erase board or on your fridge, because it's contagious. Gratitude is contagious, and it fills us with so much energy, and we start to have more time to do more of the good things in our lives. Would you agree with that, Allison? The power of gratitude?
Yeah, gratitude is everything. When I was talking at the beginning about how I'm looking at my moments now, the way I think about mindfulness, it's about like an intentional, like putting on new glasses to try to see the world through, and to actually like be looking for what are the things around me right now that are awesome. Like even the things I'm seeing, or the things that I'm like just watching them interact, or how I'd like to touch them and they're letting me hug them, like what are the things that when you start looking for it yourself, like I always love to bring it back to us first, because when we can always bring it back to us first, then it doesn't become something that's another thing to do. It's just like, oh my gosh, I saw this thing. Oh yeah, I'm going to write it on the fridge, right? It's out of that energy rather than I have to find something to write on the fridge. It becomes more of how can I look for this? How can I literally put on different glasses all the time to try and find the things that I see? And that's that gratitude energy, which is a really, really big thing. It's pretty life-changing, actually.
I wanted to chime in a little bit. I actually, a couple of years ago, I did a program where through the doctor's office, they encouraged me to spend 5 minutes with my kid a day, device free, and I just played whatever he wanted to play. And in that 5 minutes, I was encouraged to repeat his words, repeat his actions, really play with him on his level, and also give him those 5 compliments within those 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And the idea of that is sometimes it's hard to think about it all day long, but it was as simple as, wow, I really like how you're playing so nicely with that toy, or you passed that to me so nicely. Mm-hmm. And they're small little things, but it fills their bucket in the moment. And the next day, he remembered those 5 minutes. And every day he craved those 5 minutes, and it felt so good to him to have it. But he also wasn't, it wasn't like a needy thing. He was able to take it and fulfill him throughout the day. And when I couldn't spend the 5 minutes with him, I was able to pass him on to, in my case, my husband, or a friend, or a babysitter, or even the teacher in the classroom, encouraging the teachers to do the same as well, and with all their kids. And, it's very hard. To be with 4 kids at home. I have a hard time with 2 kids at home. And I have the support of my spouse. So I can't imagine what it's like with 4 kids at home by yourself. But I also know in the classroom with 18 kids, it's also a handful. So when I took that course and I wanted to use it in my classroom, we took it and spread it throughout 2 weeks. And every day, each teacher took a different kid, and we gave each kid 5 minutes of personalized attention and that positive reinforcement and that positive play. And it really went a long way. And they only got it from us every 14 days. So, rotating between your 4 kids just throughout 1 week will really still give them that positive reinforcement. And the bands, I know you work so hard with that. try one for each kid that you're not doing it in the moment, and make it easier on yourself. Make it a joyful moment, versus always trying to find that something to do. But like both Allison and Amanda were saying, catching them in the moment, writing it down. If your kids have cell phones, texting it to them. I mean, I used to work with a family with older kids, and I found that to be the best way to communicate with them. You know, wow, I saw you finished your homework and you cleaned up and you packed your bag for school tomorrow. I'm really impressed. And I sent that through a text, and I could hear the giggle in the next room over, or, you know, they went off to bed in a much happier way, especially because I was connecting to them on their level with the technology.
Yeah.
But it comes in all sorts of ways, and your kids can read now. So if you put it on the refrigerator and they see that you're putting these things up there, it's a reminder to them too. And before you know it, you're going to start seeing them doing it for their siblings. They could start adding to the list for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's I didn't think of the texting part, but that's a good idea. I like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have one daughter, and like I make an effort every day when she goes to school to like text her something, because you know, that kind of connection is so important. You know, I have a daughter that's working, so like I try to every couple days just send anything so that they know I'm thinking about them, you know, and so it's really helped strengthen the relationship.
I have one other thought. Those were all so good. I've heard it said before that just physically touching people, like it doesn't take any time, right? It doesn't take, you can just like,
Mm-hmm.
like what I heard it said, like we need like 15 or 20 intentional touches every day to feel loved. So you can literally just walk by them and like touch them on the shoulder, and it counts. It counts as something. They feel it. So like, even if it doesn't, even if you don't have like a visceral reaction from them, it's like this confirmation that you're there, that you support them, that you love them, right? And it doesn't really take much time at all. So I wanted to make sure.
I love it.
I actually had I do also. One of my kids is actually a little bit more emotional than most of them, and I've noticed there was this. I think I read into it that the hug therapy, where you just like approach them and you just hug them really, really tight, like really embrace them in such a way that like they can't move, but that's till you feel like their tension is so like it's there, it's in the shoulders, and you feel it. And then like slowly that hug kind of like you feel the tension dwindle. You feel it kind of like move down. I don't know why, but for some reason it works.
It totally works. That's a real thing. Well, think about it for you. Like, you know that experience, right? When someone's willing to hold you until you come to like just it's so good.
You can relax, like somebody's got you. Right? I mean, how often, I mean, most people, we're not touching one another most of the time of the day, right? Somebody holds you until you can just kind of relax in their arms a little bit. It's pretty powerful.
Super powerful.
Yeah, it's actually something we've added into our day also, especially when my kids are having a rough time. And I see my son needing that extra TLC. I'll go over and give him like the tightest bear hug. And then I'll ask him to give me squeeze the tightest he can. Of course, I'm going to make a face and tell him, oh, I can't breathe. But, you know, it lightens the mood, and the physical touch really goes a long way, especially for children who are uniquely wired, or children who need that extra emotional support.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Thank you, Yafa, for your question. I know for a fact that a lot of people can resonate with you, and we're all, you know, it's hard today, you know, working now, especially with COVID and working long hours and coming back to your family. And now it's getting darker, so it feels like it's even later. So I know that there are other people out there and other people watching that can resonate with what you're going through, and know that we're here to support you. And we love you, and we're all here for you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to ask a question? Okay, then. Well, I wanted to thank everybody for coming. I'm just going to check. I know we're live on Facebook also. I'm just going to do a quick check to make sure there's no questions there that I missed.
Well, Allie, I was going to offer to send you one of my little posters that you could send out to your families. And it has a heart and it just says push, pause, breathe, connect, and listen, which is just a great reminder you can put up on your wall to remember, okay, push, pause, breathe, connect with your child, connect with yourself, and then just listen.
But when they ask you about it, like when I was approached about the bracelets, I was told by the pediatrician not to say anything about it. When you're asked about it, like how do you give it off that I guess project or thing that you're doing?
Oh, like the poster?
Like the pause poster. Yeah, like, okay, mommy,
Yeah.
What is this? Like,
I would say how I would say it to my kids, I'm really authentic with my kids. Like I'll say, listen, I'm trying to be a better mom because I love you. And like, I want you to be happy and I want you to grow up and feel loved and supported. And like, I'm trying to figure that out. So this is a little poster to remind me to push pause and to breathe so that I don't react as quickly and I can be more available for you. Like I would tell them, about how you're going to apply it. What will happen as you do that? Some families, the little kids are writing the pause button on their hand every day and they write it on their mom's hand. Like, okay, mom, come here. We got to put it right, or on themselves, because then it becomes a part of, hey, I'm pushing my pause button, right? And it can be lighthearted. So I would just be really authentic with your kids. It's not about you doing something to them. It's about you being the mom you really want to be without being overwhelmed and stressed out. Like it's not one more thing to do. It's just something to remember to be.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I actually have a question from Facebook. What about the one child in your class that requires a lot of attention or gratification while there are 7 to 9 other toddlers? How do you give that one child the attention that they desperately need when you've got a whole classroom, obviously? And I know we've got multiple teachers there, but how do you make the time for that one when both teachers are needed to watch all of them?
Yes, that's a great question. Do you want me to answer that one or take a stab at it?
Go for it, please.
Well, one of those things is just recognizing the unique needs of your classroom, right? It's like, and then enrolling over time, everyone in the classroom to help support one another, right? I mean, if you think about it, if you've got a child who maybe is handicapped or has something, physically that's difficult for them, there's just an understanding that this little guy needs a little bit more help, right? And there's just this kind of we help one another. Well, for so many kids that are uniquely wired, nothing looks out of place, but they're not able to regulate. They're not able to sit down like the other kids, right? Like they just have other needs. And so I think you create kind of a plan and then you find a way to bring everybody in together on that, right? And recognizing, hey, Johnny needs to run around 10 times in a circle, right? And now he feels better, right? It's about so often accepting that each kid needs something differently. So how can we make it work? Because we have a tendency to want everyone to fit into a little box. And as the days go on, more and more kids do not fit in the box anymore. And so it's like teachers are going, oh my gosh, now I've got 3 kids who need something different each time. So it's going to be pushing pause for sure, right? And then doing the best you can in that moment and getting everybody on board to support one another, right? Like I know your teachers have lots of different resources to try to help. But it's always going to be something that you're going to have to navigate, is that 1 or 2 children that just cannot keep their hands to themselves, right? They just can't stay sitting still. So you give them those alternatives and get people on the team together, right? So instead of it being the little kid who won't do what everyone else is doing, you find a way to include and get everyone on the team. I hope that's helpful. I mean, it's not like a pat answer, but it's the principle that they can apply.
I think that was helpful, Amanda, very much. I also think that some of the things that we've already said would probably help also. If the child is feeling like you are a safe person and you're not going to lose your cool over them losing their cool, then it becomes a safer environment too for them to actually listen when you make your appeal and work to do the ideas that Amanda had about how, what kind of solutions, how can we be creative? How can we be innovative? How can we be inclusive? And how can we be safe? I think safety is such a big thing, which really comes down to connecting and maintaining our own calm and our own state of being so that we can allow that space for them.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me of another thing we talk about in our group is misbehavior is stress behavior. So when the child looks like they're misbehaving, there's usually something stressing the child. It could be they're hungry. It could be they're tired. It could be a number of things, but as you get curious, once you've pushed your pause button, you can start to say, okay, what's stressing this child? How can we help meet the need, reduce the stress? And as a teacher, you're always going to be kind of juggling that with, one kid's going to have a great day, other kids are not, right? So you're kind of always juggling that. But I love the safety aspect because when there's a feeling of safety, and the safety doesn't mean that, it just means so often the self-regulation of the adults. There's space for the child to go, okay, they're calm. They're not going to freak out because I'm kind of freaking out, right? It's like when you go to your best friend or a spouse and you're like, I'm freaking out. Oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. And they're like, you're overwhelmed? Oh my gosh, right? Like that doesn't calm you. You're like, no, you need to stay calm and help me get calm, right? But if everyone's, it's like, it's really hard to navigate through that. So that was a little dramatic, but that's me sometimes.
No, I love it.
Well, I'll take it one step further. How do you stay calm now if you've got one child in the classroom that's revving up the rest of the class? How do you as a teacher or at home, if you've got one kid getting all the other kids wild and running around the house, how do you stay mindful, stay calm, and then I guess bring the house back down and calm everyone else down?
Do you want to answer that one, Allison?
I'll start with it. So
okay.
I have this, I have several little statements that I always say to myself over and over. And one of them is there's always more to the story. And it kind of goes back again to what Amanda said, how misbehavior is stress behavior. When I know, okay, you guys are acting like lunatics. Well, it just depends. It depends on what the energy is, right? Sometimes it's just play. They have got a lot of pent up stuff from the day and they just need to go to bed. In that situation, I'm like, okay, I'm just putting you all in the direction of what you need to go. But if it's if one person is just losing their mind, and I have this with one of my children, happens to particularly like dinosaur roaring as the go-to reaction and just total meltdowns over like anything all the time. It's really helpful to say, okay, there's that's not because he's not doing this to me. He's not just trying to make me angry. He doesn't even, when I questioned him the other day, I actually had this really great conversation where I was in a state of like, okay, like what's underneath this? And he hates feeling that way. He hates reacting that way. It actually adds to his own frustration because he thinks everybody hates him. Like, so he's got this own world going on inside of him. And when I remember my kids they are human beings just like me. They've got all this stuff going on that's motivating all their actions just like me. And there can just be the compassion again for all people involved. Like, me reacting to this, the way I'm feeling right now, normal. Okay. Stop shaming that. Fine. Okay. So I can bring that back in. Okay. Them acting like this, normal. All right. Okay. So what else is here? And bring in that curiosity of what's the chain reaction coming from? This is a trickle down effect of something going on in his mind. And his feelings are something that he doesn't know how to control right now because he doesn't care about controlling his feelings, and it's coming from something up in his head. He just is trying to express it. So when I can start remembering, like, there's a lot more going on here. There's a lot more about the interactions between my children. There's a lot more about like the whole state of the air of whatever it is that what's breathing in the air in our environment today. The days are always changing. There's always information that needs to be collected. So I like to always go back to that when I feel like this is a situation I can't control. But when I know that I can control my own feelings, I can always control my own feelings because I can always control my own thoughts. And when I can go back to thinking, okay, there's more information here. I can take care of me. Let's see if we can figure out what we can help them with them. And then it's like there's something to do, right? It gives me something to do. So I'm not just like, could we please fix all this so that it can go back to a state of calm? Maybe it's not supposed to be a state of calm. It's supposed to be like this because there's something information that's yeah.
So can I ask a question to what you said?
Yeah.
So you said that when the child feels like they're hated and they have these like tantrums where after that they feel like they hate it. So I have a couple of kids like that, where they have these moments where, sorry, it's bedtime, where they have these moments that the kid, like they're lashing out, they're yelling, they're screaming, and I know it's derived from something else, but then afterwards it's like I get horror notes from them saying like, I hate myself, I want to kill myself, and nobody loves me, and nobody cares about me, and everybody's this, and they're like bashing themselves to such a point. Like if you read the letters that I get, sometimes it's just like, oh my God, like they're screaming. I know that they are, and they feel so guilty about doing what they did, but how or what, in what way can you make a child feel reassured that they're not hated? And I tell my kids, like, I don't hate you. I love all of you in your own special way, but I don't feel like it's resonating with them. I don't feel like it's kind of like they're believing it sort of in a sense because they still feel that negative emotion in themselves.
Yeah, so we always, everything that we do is generated from our own thoughts. So that's what's happening with them. So it's kind of like, we want to be like, I want to fix your thoughts. Can I just fix your thoughts? Right. But it doesn't exactly work like that. It has to be more of an offering again and again and again. I'm offering you this idea that nothing you can do is ever going to make me hate you. I'm offering you this idea that no matter what is going on with you right now, no matter how I react, I'm always going to love you, and I'm always going to try to come back to connection with you. I'm always going to apologize for my part. I'm always going to look to restore that, right? Because, and I have things that I tell my kids all the time that they roll their eyes at, but I'm like, you know why I love you? And they're like, because I'm breathing. And I'm like, yes. And I actually started changing that recently. I actually started changing that recently too. Because, kids, what if I'm not breathing? So I'm like, you know what? Because you exist, because you were born, I love you. That your value is inherent, and I will show you it over and over and over.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to recognize it yourself, but me always showing you over and over and over by both my good and bad behavior, right? Because I'm screwing up all the time. I apologize to my kids constantly. And that's good, right? It's good. They need to see that. They need to see that they don't have to be perfect, that connection can be restored. So I think that would probably something that I would just always go back to conversation. Like when you get those notes, I would always go back to, I want to hear about what's inside your head. I see what you've said to me. I don't think these things, how can you bring it back to conversation always and address it always is what I would say. And I think that you are showing them a lot more than you think they're seeing. And probably those notes that you're getting, it's really just like, I've got to express this, right? Like they just need to see that they're expressing and being seen.
I mean, I'm thankful. Like my therapist always says, like these are cry outs for help, but they're good ones. And I'm like, I don't get it. Yeah. It's just because they're coming to you. And if they're not, then they don't feel safe with you, but they feel safe. So they show you their most goriest, sacred emotions.
Yeah.
When I feel like so much like a failure when I get these kind of notes.
So that's such a beautiful thing your therapist said to you, because that's true. And you can really you can borrow that thought. Like you can hold on to that thought that she's offering you, even if you're like, I feel like I suck when I get these, or I feel horrible. That's just your brain saying, you should think these things. And you can say, hey, I'm going to take that thought my therapist gave me, and I'm going to think about that one, because that's going to give me more likely feelings of love and compassion for this kid who I need to direct it to right now, instead of shame and blaming of myself. And I think that I really do think they're seeing a lot more than you think they are. So it's probably just a matter of learning how to be like, how do I hold the space for all of their emotion that they're showing me? And at the same time, like process my own thoughts so that I can continue to be that safe person holding that safe space for them.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have any thoughts on that, Amanda?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, how did you say you offered something to your kids? It wasn't offer restoration, was it? It was like offer thoughts, or what? How did you say it initially? Do you remember? Maybe not.
So I like to use the word offer because we all have our own thoughts, and our kids have their own, universe of thoughts inside of their head. And we like to think that we can control those thoughts, but we can't. We can't ever, just like no one else can say, you're supposed to think that. We're just going to be like, what? But someone can offer you thoughts. Someone can offer you ideas of, this is how I see it. Or this is another way that you could possibly look at this. Or this is, here's some other options that you could put up there instead of just that one that you're following.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll grab onto it, right? Like you can borrow your therapist's thought. Sometimes we do that a lot with each other. You can hold it out for them. And that's that whole idea of holding the space for you can have your own thoughts. And I see those and I validate those and I hear you and I love you. And you will just keep seeing this message from me over and over and over.
Yeah. Well, I would add one thing, and this, it took me a little bit of time to make the connection, and depending on the child, that if this is your own child or a child that you work with at school, not only being willing to kind of hear what they have to say, right? And then caring for yourself so that you fill yourself back up, right? So you're not constantly depleted, but starting to see that child truly for who they are, and then expressing your confidence in them. Like you're going to figure this out. Like it's, just kind of like even what Allison has already said to you is like, you're doing better than you think, right? Even expressing that to these youth that you're talking about, it's like, you're doing better than you think. I know you have kind of these thoughts, but I know you're going to figure it out. Like there's people in your life that care about you and they're going to help you. So expressing confidence when people are not feeling confident is really, really powerful, especially if you start to really see it. And it gives them extra strength to take those actions because they're like, these people think right? Like you don't even know me and Allison other than right now. But I know you can feel that we're authentic with you. It's like, you're doing way better than you think. And there's something inside of you going, yeah, I probably am. But it's really hard to say because it's hard and it's messy and like, it's not perfect. And my kids are sort of ignoring me right now. And, like you have those other stories. But even a stranger like us, which hopefully now we're more friends, like when they speak the truth, you can feel it inside. It's like, yeah, that is true. And so these others in your life can also feel that truth when you speak it to them. And it's very powerful and very, very helpful on their journey.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I do acknowledge that sometimes I do feel that way, but it's a work in progress.
Totally. I'm going to get off this phone and kick the cat, just so you know. Just joking. I don't have a cat, but like, I'm listening out there going, did they clean up the spaghetti? Like, does it smell out there still? Right? Like, I'm just a totally normal person, but I'm actually going to push pause and breathe before I go out there because they're going to be like, Mom, every time you get off a phone call, you're so raunchy, which I'm not. But, it's like, as much as these principles, you still are constantly practicing them. So just be gentle. All of you, everyone listening, just be gentle with yourself.
It's supposed
and have that compassion.
It's supposed to be messy. It is supposed to be that way. I think just that, like everybody needs to hear.
Yes.
Not supposed to be polished.
Yeah. Messy is the way it happens.
You mean we don't all live that TV lifestyle that we all see on Netflix and on Hulu and,
on YouTube?
My family should be like that. How come they're so calm? How come there's no laundry all over the place? They don't have dishes piling up for days, dirty diapers laying around. That's not the typical, or that is the typical.
No.
There's no such thing, actually.
No.
Anything you feel like that is all fake.
I wish that somebody would make real TV for us so that we don't feel this pressure of my house always needs to be clean. My kids should never have a single meltdown. My children should always listen to me all the time. I mean, we all hope they do, but we're, they're human beings too. They have their own opinions, their own thoughts. And, life, like you said, life is messy. Being mindful is a beautiful thing, but it's not so easy to always get there right away. And it's okay to not be mindful from time to time. It's okay to go with the flow and just deal with your messes one at a time. And it's great to take that pause and, stop and look around. But I'm going to give one last advice that Amanda actually gave me earlier today. And that is, when you've got chaos going on and you want to be mindful, just pause and do that first thing on your list. Check that first thing off your list and be mindful for that one thing. Don't worry about the dishes. Don't worry about the laundry. Don't worry about the dirty diapers that are piling up in the corner. Be mindful in the moment for that one moment, that one thing. Breathe. Be there for your family. Be there for yourself, and take it easy. And that's helping even for today, trying to be mindful for tonight, trying to be here for all of you, trying to be here for myself, because putting this program together, yes, it's out there. I'm doing it for everyone else, but I'm also being mindful of myself as a parent, that I gain from this too. I gain from this as a parent, as an educator, and as a person. So I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight, for sharing your amazing knowledge. I want to thank you all, everyone who contributed questions, everyone who joined us just to say hi and be here with us. I really appreciate it. So thank you
for coordinating this, Allie. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
Oh, that's Allie.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Allie.
Allie.
Bye, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Good night.
Have a good night, Allie.
We'll be back in 2 weeks. And our next topic is parenting during a pandemic. So those burning questions we have of how to manage the social distancing from home and the virtual schooling, come with your questions because I'm sure you've got many. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's Ali.